Hi Hema, how are you?
Hi, fine. What about you?
I'm absolutely fine. Thank you for asking. So can you tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, myself Hema, and my graduation in University College of Engineering, Vilupuram, and 2017 batch. After my working experience, I'm having 5 years experience, 4 years in manual and 1 year in automation.
Hmm.
And then I will do, and my roles and responsibilities is I will do all types of testing like functional, non-functional, regression, integration, API system, performance, all types of testing I will do. And then I will write test cases, documentation based on the client requirements. And then test management tool is Jira, Confluence, all those things are I using.
Okay,
So these are the,
great. So how do you perform non-functional testing? Do you use any tool?
no, don't use any tool. Based on timing, I will work on that.
So based on time, it means you might be opening the Chrome browser. In that, you might be opening the response of an API via F12 or inspect element in that. And inspect tools, or do you use performance monitor or something like that?
For example, I'm loading this clicking login button.
Hmm.
When you click login button clicking means it's loading now.
Okay.
At the time I saw the what's the time, and then after it's, the loading is completed, saw the time. So based on that timing between, I will testing this performance. So
Mhm.
JMeter, I'll not a hands-on experience, but basics I know.
Yes. So what you have to do when you are asked this kind of question in an interview, you have to try giving an answer in terms of tools and technologies. JMeter is a very good tool that you can learn actually, and you can capture API. You can record the APIs in JMeter, and you will come to know what is the response time whenever you hit any API, right? So you will have to update yourself with respect to JMeter, and then you can give this answer, right? Because these days no one is there might be some people,
Yeah.
but generally the trend, the world is moving towards performance testing using JMeter only, right? So watch timers, watches, and all those things, you can avoid telling in interviews, right? Okay. How do you identify that this particular scenario, this particular test scenario is critical from business point of view?
In this point of view, we have first identify the login page only.
First,
After
you will
login only,
identify,
we identify login.
login, you will identify.
Yeah, login page. Because login, but login button only works correctly means afterwards only we are internal system, internal part we have to test. No,
Hmm.
that's why we have first login page how to work correctly. This
Okay,
is the main thing in our.
fine. See, login is one of the screen that you will have in the applications. Similarly,
Yeah.
if it's an e-commerce domain, so there will be some particular screen which will be very critical from business point of view. If it's an investment banking domain, there will be one particular screen which is very critical. If it's a payment related application, then payment related options will be very critical. So it's a generic question. How do you identify that this particular test scenario is critical from business aspect? How do you identify? Like, how will you come to know that this particular scenario should be working in each and every release, in each and every deployment, in each and every build which has been done? That this particular scenario should work. Then and then only I will give a green sign. How will you identify that?
Um, in crash messages, if any occur crash messages, if any occur validation messages,
Mm.
so we have to identify how to ignore the crash messages. We release the crash messages means we don't have to release in the build to our client. Not able to release in that.
Mm.
particular bill to our client.
Okay.
So we
Now,
have to avoid the voodoo error, and then crash messages, these are the things.
mm, okay,
These are the basic things, no. So we have to know this.
okay. Which methodology you are following? Agile or waterfall?
Agile.
Agile. Okay. So in Agile, you will be having user story, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how do you rate a user story? Like, do you give story points to each and every user story?
yeah.
Hmm? So, so can you give me some examples of the user stories with the story points? You don't need to disclose the project or the domain that you are working, but just give me the example of that this particular is an example of a user story with 10 story points. This particular is an example of a user story with 20 story points, like that.
Mm, can you tell me some example for this?
Hmm.
How you?
Yeah. So if you have to give some example, right?
Mm,
Do you want me to help you?
yeah, I need some example for this.
Okay, okay, okay. I thought,
Yeah.
okay, fine. So, see, consider there is a user story in which there is a change in the validation message. Okay, so that effort, the time behind that user story will be less, right? So the uh, so the story point, or you can say the timing to complete that story will be less, right? You can also say it is one or two story point. Or if you are giving estimation with respect to t-shirt sizing, like large, XL, extra large, like that, then you can give as per that as well, right? Now there is one more story which has been asked, which is actually a request that has come from one of the very critical stakeholder, or you can say one of the very critical customer, and they are telling you to develop this particular screen, and they have listed some of the acceptance criteria, right? Now, the story point for that particular user story, which is actually a request from this particular higher management side, or you can say the critical customer has asked. So that story point will be the points will be more because it is going to impact the business in a very extraordinary manner, right? Now, whenever you will write the test scenarios for this particular user story, you will identify them that this is actually a critical user story. Without this, we cannot make a release. Without this, we cannot do we cannot give a thumbs up to the deployment that has been done, right? So now, are you able to correlate the question that I asked earlier and now?
Yeah, little.
Little bit. Okay, let me explain you one more.
Yeah.
So the first prior to this, the question was about how will you identify the critical scenarios, right, for your application?
Mm,
That based on this scenario, if it works, then only you will give a thumbs up, you will give a green signal to the deployment. So what you have to do is you have to identify such kind of user stories, or you will be collaborating with the product management team, business analyst, and you will be discussing with them, okay, this particular scenario should work end to end. This is a business related scenario. Once it works, then and then only you will sign off the build, right? If they are not available, you can go through the user stories. As you are following
yeah.
agile methodology, you can go through
Yeah.
all the user stories one by one, and you will come to know, okay, this is actually a critical user story. This was actually a request that was made from one of the critical customer, right? Then there are some user stories which are related to migration. For example, if you are upgrading the version from X version to X plus one version, then your
Mm,
data which is there in the X version should work in X plus one version as well. So that is backward compatibility you have to maintain whenever your user is getting migrated from older version to newer version. So such user stories are very critical, right? Then when it comes to e-commerce domain based kind of application, so let's take an example of Amazon, right? So what is important? Adding the products to the cart and then a successful payment with respect to the product that you are going to purchase, right? So those are critical scenarios. So this is how you will identify based on the domain of the application, based on what you have discussed with the product managers, stakeholders are also involved. Sometimes the development team are also involved, right? They will all identify 5 to 10 scenarios that you will be keeping in your checklist, that you will be keeping as a part of smoke testing, that these all things should work, then and then only I would be able to sign off. So this is how you will identify the critical scenarios. Clear? Okay.
Okay.
So this is how you have to explain in a real-time interview.
Okay.
Okay. Now, do you do testing on desktop-based application or web-based application?
Web based.
Web-based application. Okay.
Mm.
Now, this web-based application that you are testing, so consider at one particular web page, when you are loading one particular web page or when you are navigating to that particular web page, right? It is taking a lot of time to load. For example, there are 4 pages in your web application, just for an example, A, then page B, then page C, and then page D. When you go from page B to page C, the page C is taking a lot of time in loading all the contents on the screen, right? So how will you troubleshoot this kind of scenario?
First, these 4 pages present. I have to test that these 4 pages are present, and then I used to navigate the pages A to B and then B to C. We
Mhm.
see how is loading more than timing mentioned means how to troubleshoot your asking means I'm testing the time based only no.
Mhm. Right, right.
Time
So
based
time,
only,
yeah, so time it is
yes.
taking more. Now,
Mm,
what would be your next step? How will you see? You will raise a ticket, you will raise a defect that it is taking
yeah.
more time.
Mm.
But how will you assist the developer, or what will you do in order to find the root cause analysis?
Find the root cause.
Mm,
I'm based on this. Mm, what are the steps I was used to do? That are mentioned in the steps.
mm,
So these are this. So only the developers also identify the root cause
mm.
based on identify the steps only on that particular ticket.
Okay, so any other thing that you would like to answer?
Mm, no.
Mhm. Okay, now let's say that page C out of 4 pages, page A, page B, page C, and page D. Page C is taking a lot of time to load, right? So what you can do is, if you are not using any tool, manually, you can actually inspect all the APIs that are being loaded when you are navigating to that particular page. Okay. And you can check the time, the duration of each particular API. How much time does it take to load on that, to get a response successfully for that particular page. Okay. Now let's say there are 10 APIs being called for on that particular screen on page C. Out of 10 APIs, which API is taking the longer time? Okay. Now there will be one particular or maybe two API or more than two, which would be taking more time, right? So now out of those 10 APIs, you have found 2 or 3 APIs which are taking more time and which you can actually suspect, which are actually a kind of a reason behind your loading of the page is getting slow or slowness of the page you are introducing, right? Then, sorry, you are experiencing. Then out of those 2 or 3 APIs, you can then see what are the request parameters that are being sent to them. Are they actually integrated with some other particular page, or they are taking data from the database, right? So this is how you can isolate that from which particular end these APIs are taking the data. If they are taking from database, you can have a word with the SQL developers or with the development team that maybe the query, SQL query from which the data is coming, that is not coming properly, that is not coming intact, or it is coming, but it is taking a lot of time. So maybe the query modification they will have to do, or maybe they will have to modify the stored procedure, right? This is when this particular API is taking the data from the database. Okay, it can be any database, SQL, Oracle, whichever is being implemented. Now coming to the second aspect, if it's an API which is not related to database, but it is taking the data with respect to other dependent API, which was there on page B. Okay, then you can evaluate the API which is there on page B, and you can test how much time it is taking and which all things are being checked over there while sending the response to next API, right? Unnecessary calls are there, unnecessary checkpoints are being made, then automatically it would take some time. So you will have to coordinate with the development team to remove the redundant calls, right? And then you can move further. Is it clear?
Okay, yeah, clear.
Okay, what is requirement gathering?
Requirement gathering. First, we have to
Yes.
yeah, requirement gathering means we have to acquire the what are the things have to need based on the client's call. On the client's call, what are the things we have to develop? What are the things we have to include in that particular project? All are mentioned by the client only. So
Hmm.
we have to um, acquire the requirements from clients.
Right.
So these are the requirements gathering.
Hmm.
Based on requirements gathering, uh, both developers and testers and project managers all are will discuss and do the checklist.
Hmm.
Based on the checklist, the developers will work on that, and
Hmm.
that based on that, the testers will do the test cases
Right.
like that.
Okay. So in actually requirement gathering, you can consider that it is a six step or it is a multiple step requirement gathering process, right? The very first step in the requirement gathering is you will be assigning roles, right? You will be assigning roles, that is, you will be identifying who is actually the stakeholder with whom you have to coordinate, or who is the customer with whom you have to coordinate. Then there can be other roles, like someone can be project manager who is involved, project administrator, business analyst might be involved, right? And you will list down all the items so that the risk is at the minimum level, right? Then you will conduct the meetings with the stakeholders. You will get an idea of what kind of project is it going to be, right? What is the ask from the customer or the client? What is the significance of implementing this project, right? What is the goal of this project? What do you think that can be the concerns in this project? What could be the challenges in this project, right? How can you recommend that this project, what changes you will recommend such that this project goes smoothly end to end, right? Then the documentation would be done. All the information would be gathered from the
Yeah,
management, like whichever requests they have, whichever questions they have, whatever comments, feedback that they have, right? Then you will also create a list of assumptions and the requirements, like these would be the assumptions, and then list of do's and don'ts, like we won't be doing this, and we would be actually
yeah,
creating some kind of milestones, right? So these all things you will be doing. At the end you will be getting an approval, that this is an approval on the BRD or FRD which we are going to follow, right? And step last would be that you will be initiating the process. Okay, so these all things are involved in requirement gathering.
yeah.
Okay, what is sprint backlog?
Print backlog is mostly managed by product owner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's backlog means we have to mention what are the requirements we have to take priority for the particular sprint. So based on the uh, client requirements, which one we have to take priority. For example, out of 10 we have to 3 priority means in that 2 weeks we have to maintain the one sprint means we have to in that one sprint we have to complete at the particular requirements. That means three user requirements. So these are mentioned in this sprint backlog, and that product owner distribute these three requirements to Scrum team.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. How will you test Google Drive functionality? Right? You might be using Gmail. In that we have got Google Drive in which we are storing all the documents, right? So how will you perform testing? So can you tell me high level test scenarios, positive and negative for Google Drive functionality?
First, in our Gmail, uh, Google Drive is opening correctly
Mm-hmm.
without any error, and then in that Google Drive, all the files are able to save, or saving files are able to save or not, and then you have to do the CRUD operations in that file. That means we have to in that transferring files are saving or not, and then able to edit that particular file in that drive. So
Correct.
that afterwards we have to remove, able to remove in that drive, and then in that drive present is presentation, Excel, all documentation, all those types of files are there. So able to save based on that files in that, and then more number of files are able to save. We have to check in that, and then yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Okay. So apart from that, you can also add scenarios like you would be trying to upload files of various formats, right? Like XLS file or text file or PDF or video or images kind of files. Then you can also have the folder upload as well, right? File upload is one of the functionality, folder upload is also one of the functionality, right? Then
yeah, yeah.
whichever, yeah, then there is a sorting mechanism available. Then you can also see the things that are being uploaded, the documents or files, those are being uploaded in the list layout format or in the grid layout format, right? Then you can also sort them with respect to the dates, ascending or descending order when they have been uploaded, right? So these all things will be coming in the positive test scenario. In the negative test scenario, it would come like the drive is already full and you are trying to upload one more file. Then what
Yeah.
happens? Or
Mm.
when you are trying to upload, let's say, very big file of let's say 2 GB or 4 GB. And after uploading 500 MB of file, you disconnect the internet connection or you disconnect that particular from that particular device or your laptop from LAN cable also you disconnect or you disconnect the Wi-Fi, then what happens, right? Or you can also do the negative testing in the form of, let's say, only 500 MB space is left and now you are trying to upload 1 GB file. So what happens? Partially file has been uploaded over there and it gets saved over there, or how does it happen, right? So these can be the negative test scenarios. Okay. Now, can you tell me something about the automation framework that you are working on?
Selenium.
Selenium. Okay. So whenever someone is asking you about automation framework, so you can explain like whether it is data-driven framework, is it pivot-driven framework, it is PDD, and what is the programming language that you are using it over there? Like so Selenium with Java, or is it Python or C Sharp that you are using? Then you can also tell about the reporting mechanism, or and then you can also tell about the page object model design that you have implemented or not. So these all things you have to tell in the automation framework question. Okay. Now, which framework you are using?
Cucumber.
Cucumber. Okay. So, so you are using Cucumber. So can you tell me more about the automation framework, like which is the reporting mechanism that you have used over there?
Yeah, mostly automation we are experienced in 1 year only. So barely we are using that.
Okay, fine. Okay, so what is step definition file?
Step definition file, no idea.
Okay, okay, fine. No worries. So in BDD, there are actually three important essential files that you will get questions on, right? One is the feature file, in which we write the keywords related test scenarios, like given, when, then, and these are all the keywords, right? The feature file would consist of the test scenarios in English text plain language, right? Then comes step definition file, in which we are actually writing the code, and you can use any programming language to write the code, and it would be mapped with the feature file. For example, in feature file, if you're writing like login to this particular URL, so the code of that particular statement, login into that particular application, would be mentioned in the step definition. And then you will have test runner file with which you will be executing the test cases, right? So this is how you can explain the feature file, the step definition file, and the test runner. Okay. How do you
Yeah.
keep yourself updated? Let's say if any new tool or technology has come up in the market. So how do you keep yourself updated?
Sorry.
How do you keep yourself updated? Let's say if any new tool or technology has come up in the market. So how do you keep yourself updated? How will you
Based
get that
on
information? Yeah.
mobile, mobile on any new apps or any learning apps or that updated in the session. I think.
Okay, so in mobile, you will seek that information.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you can also tell like you are referring to maybe some Google websites or testing blogs from which you can get such kind of information, right? And you can also tell few of the good YouTube channel name from which you are getting these kind of informations, right? So this is how you can answer. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Hema, I am done with the interview. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. No. How was my interview?
Yeah, so your interview was actually good. Now you have been working in the core testing areas like test planning is there, test strategy is there. You are working in agile methodology. Now you have to apply whatever the practically work you are doing in your day to day, every day, right from morning to evening. You have to apply all that knowledge into your answers. You have to tell to the interviewer that this is how you are working, right? So scenario based questions that you have to first focus on. No one will be asking you the theoretical based questions because you are already having 5 years of experience, right?
Yeah.
So you have to focus on real time scenario based questions.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you
Okay.
so much for coming today on our channel, and all the best for your career.